Hello, welcome to Performance Anxiety. We analyse the film, television, theatre and comedy performances that everybody is talking about. I'm Alex Dale, and with me is my resident film expert,
Maren and Alex.
On this episode, we want to talk about Bros, which is Universal's new rom-com. It's causing quite a stir, partly because of the Twitter outbursts of its main writer and star Billy Eichner, and it's famous partly because it's one of the world's first gay rom-coms.
One of the world's first gay rom-coms that is backed by a big studio.
The other interesting thing about this is the way it's cast, so that every lead cast member is out gay or out queer in some way.
Yes, so it has been cast according to the guidelines of correct casting, that if the character is a certain identity, it should be played by that identity.
So the reason we want to look at this film in particular is because it's not done terribly well at the box office. I think it's fair to say it's a flop.
Yes, famously flopped, and not just that, there has been this backlash by Billy Eichner, the main star of the movie.
Yeah, he thought it flopped because people were homophobic. But what we want to ask is, are there any other reasons why this might not have been successful, in particular to do with the way it's been cast and the way it's been performed?
But I think we should also make clear that there have been other big reasons pointed out that the film has not been successful. Especially Variety magazine pointed out, first of all, the film, although it was a big release, it did not have any A-list stars in its title. So, you know, there is a problem of people not wanting to go out into the cinema, spending money on a film where they don't know who they're going to get.
It's a tall order expecting people go to the cinema on pig in a poke, sight unseen, right? What am I going to get?
Cat in a bag.
Exactly.
Not many people know Billy Eichner, who is a TV comedian. He's been in, I think, some of Nick Stoller's other movies, such as Neighbours or Bad Neighbours.
He was in Parks and Recreation. He's done a lot of television.
Yes. So did his co-star, Luke Macfarlane, who plays his love interest. And he is a well-known face on Hallmark television. He plays love interests left, right and centre.
So they've got,
especially in Christmas movies.
So they've got in a good actor to play a romantic lead.
Yeah, a traditional romantic lead who's been making his living out of being a romantic lead. Not just as a gay person, because he's been openly gay since, for about 10 years or so. But that never harmed his career. The other reason the film might have flopped is that the marketing has been quite aggressively targeted as an important film. Rather than marketing the film as a light-hearted comedy that you go and see if you want to have a good time, watch people fall in love, forget about the worries of the world, like you're supposed to with a romantic comedy. They're light entertainment. They're there to make you feel good. It was marketed instead as a kind of very important film that you have to see. If you don't want to be a self-confessing homophobe, you have to go and see this film and support it by visiting it and liking it. It seemed to market itself as a kind of history lesson or tutoring lesson, something very heavy.
You think people may have been put off by the fact that it comes across as quite preachy or moral or worthy in some way?
Who wants to go to the cinema to be hected?
Yeah, nobody.
Nobody. Especially not if what you want to go and see is a rom-com.
Yes, quite.
You don't want to be browbeaten.
What am I going to get here?
Yeah. By two non-entities you don't know.
Off to a flying start.
I love Luke Macfarlane.
Yeah, he's...
Love you, Luke.
Yeah, he's great. Don't worry, we'll get onto that. He's not the problem with the film at all. He holds that thing up. So let's think about the film for a second. Billy Eichner plays Bobby Lieber, basically a heightened version of himself. Billy Eichner famously, besides being a TV star, is also a comedian, stand-up, I think.
So he acts from a persona, which is a bitchy queen. He is always kind of really uptight. He's a snarky bitch, and that's his comedic character, which often works really well because the type of snarky bitch can be quite free and open, pointing out contradictions in the world, you know, because that's what you do. You're bitchy about them.
His character, Bobby Lieber, is attempting to open the world's first LGBTQ history museum.
Yes, that's the backstory, isn't it?
He's trying to raise $5 million to put LGBTQ history plus on the map, tell those untold stories. One of his premises, one of his arguments is that gay love stories haven't been told throughout history, so he's trying to bring those back or find them in history, right?
So that is the background, his raison d'etre as a person. The meaningful thing in his life is being an activist. Lo and behold, he goes out one night and in a gay nightclub with lots of shirtless meatheads dancing, he comes across Aaron, who is the said bro.
Aaron is played by Luke Macfarlane, who we've mentioned already.
Yes, and he's the kind of gay Bobby Lieber doesn't like. He's a meathead. He's not an activist. He's comfortable in his gayness and he just wants to have a good time.
One of the jokes, I think, is that the character of Aaron likes stuff that's quite naff and possibly a little straight. So he likes Friends or he likes Garth Brooks.
And he plays hockey and he likes, he says bro.
He's a bro.
And that is something Bobby Lieber as an activist cannot tolerate. In the end, it all plays out like a rom-com should. The universe aligns and these two characters overcome themselves and the difficulties they're facing.
Billy Eichner's character learns to let down his guard and let his love interest in and love him. You said it very nicely as we were leaving the film. It's like he wants to be worthy of love. His character's journey is that he wants to be worthy of love.
Like a proper rom-com. The characters learn about themselves through the other person and find that they're a much better version of themselves with the other person in their lives.
So in many ways, quite a traditional rom-com in some ways.
Absolutely trad. Well, it is very interesting because the film sets out, as you say, in this kind of pitching booth where Bobby Lieber pitches this gay rom-com to a film producer saying, our stories have never been told. Our love is not the same as straight love.
Love is not love.
Love is not love, that's what he says.
Yeah.
Or it's different love.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, oh, this could be interesting, And in the end, it turns out it's just the same.
It could have gone in quite a different direction if they'd followed that idea through logically.
Yeah, well, it could have been quite interesting. But on the other hand, what do you want? A trad love story. It was quite sweet. But was it? I think we come to the main problem that we found with the movie.
The film itself plays a lot with things like Brokeback Mountain, where you have two straight actors playing gay love interests, as if that's a problem in some way, whether it's internally in the fiction logically or whether it's an offence cosmically against gayness. There's a problem with the idea that straight people playing gay or vice versa. So here we have a film where two gay people are playing a gay couple, gay love interest. So does it matter for the film that the people who have been cast in the gay love interest are gay in reality?
I think that's a question that is misleading and it doesn't give you an answer. The problem we have with Bros is that it is a romantic comedy. And in the romantic comedy, you have two people destined to fall in love. However, what you find very early on is that these two characters, they have no chemistry with one another. And that has nothing to do with them both being gay or straight. They're mismatched acting-wise. There's two acting styles that collide, that create this mismatch or disharmony that we experience as no chemistry between the two.
I think we both empathized a great deal with, if empathy is the right word, but we both enjoyed watching Luke Macfarlane play Aaron a lot.
He is an actor, trained at Juilliard, the creme de la creme of,
only the best.
of acting schools. And he just plays a character, plays Aaron. Whereas Billy Eichner plays a heightened version of himself. He acts as a comedian. So his performance in the film is that of a comedian. Whereas the performance of Aaron is that of an actor playing a character.
So let's think about the difference between those two and what that does for the film and the nature of the romance that we are trying to enjoy in this rom-com.
Yes. So what I'm saying is that the film has been miscast. The miscasting has nothing to do with the character's sexuality at all.
Or the actor's sexuality.
Or the actor's sexuality. It has been miscast because these are two clashing styles of acting that create a disharmony.
So let's think about those two performers and the nature of those performances and where they don't click, where that lack of chemistry is and what that means for the success or the failure of the film. Starting with Luke Macfarlane. So Luke Macfarlane is a proper actor. He's been trained at Juilliard. What does that mean? How does that come across on screen? Do you know what I mean?
So the ability trained actors have is that they have been trained to not be self-conscious on screen or on stage. And that is a long process which nobody ever talks about during acting training, but it's one of the main things. You know, it's not just about elocution and it's
Sword fighting.
or sword fighting, or just doing psychological exercises, pretending to be somebody else. It's mostly exercises that break down your ability to feel self-conscious.
So it's about being watched and not feeling like you're being watched.
You were talking about the Meisner
Yeah.
philosophy, that you have to act real in unreal circumstances.
Yes.
But also what this does, the ability to lose self-awareness. The reason why this is important, the ability to not be self-conscious, because this then creates for the audience the ability to be with you. It creates what my old acting coach called a Durchlässigkeit, a kind of porosity.
So Durchlässigkeit is through-letness in
Through
German.
letness.
So I don't know what the correct English translation of that would. Porosity, transparency,
No, not
the ability to let things through somehow.
Yeah, like a membrane or
Yes.
something.
So what we're talking about is quite a subtle, I think, it's quite a subtle idea about the ability for a performer to let the audience members' subjectivity in somehow.
Yes, so what you want as an audience is to be with this person. You want to experience this person's or the character's subjectivity, what they're going through on screen. They give you all the framework with the performance, but what you want is to go in there and be part of this whole played out scene through this character. And so they will let you through. They don't have this barrier that is the self-consciousness.
This kind of self-consciousness that comes through knowing that you're being watched.
Yeah, and this is a kind of really subtle but really real thing. And the camera is that what watches you in a movie.
Mm-hmm.
And it really picks up on this phenomenon that you have this barrier, this kind of awareness barrier.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't have this, there's a kind of straight access that you have to this person's subjectivity or this character's subjectivity as an audience member. The lack of self-consciousness
In the performer.
Gives you as an audience member direct access to the subjectivity of the performer. You can tell this immediately because it's very easy to spot actors and non-actors as soon as you put the camera on these people. And here we have the clash between two different acting styles. Billy Eichner is a comedic actor. He plays his comedic persona, which is basically just self-awareness. So he doesn't relate to his audience in the same way as an actor does. He relates to the audience through his performance of his persona, which is the bitchy queer. So his acting style is his comedic performance as Billy Eichner, the bitchy queen.
It's about a persona.
It's about a persona. It's not about adopting a different character and inviting the audience to enjoy this character's subjectivity. On the contrary, it's about not letting people in.
So is it fair to say that Luke Macfarlane, on the one hand, as an actor, is showing a lack of self-awareness? That's what allows you into that performance. But on the other hand, Billy Eichner is nothing but self-aware all of the time.
Yeah.
And that's what keeps you out of that performance, right, as an audience member.
Yes. The problem here is that he plays a character who is quite unlikable.
Mm-hmm.
He's not a likable guy, which is good for his comedic performance because that's his comedic character. It's quite funny and it works really well in those moments when he's doing comedy in the film.
So there are actually very good comedy
There's
scenes in the film.
some hilarious moments when he is allowed to be a comedic actor. The orgy scene is hilarious.
So,
or when he's in his board meetings.
Yeah.
Or the time he picks up this guy from the gym.
Yeah, and I did laugh at those scenes.
It was hilarious. He is a very good comedian.
Yeah, so we're not diminishing his ability to make laughs,
No, it's a
right?
different kind of performance.
Yeah.
The problem is when he meets Luke Macfarlane's character.
Yeah.
And here we have a clash that doesn't work because, as I said, he's a very unlikable character. He's bitchy.
He's hectoring, he's mean, he's patronizing, he's self-involved.
Yes.
He drives people away. It's very hard to think of any redeeming features he actually has. He's witty, I guess, you know.
But even that. So if you play a very, very unlikable character, which is fine, but if you then want people to sort of root for you in any way, you have to let them in. You cannot have this kind of acting style, this kind of closing off of the character's subjectivity to the audience. If you don't give the audience any way in to empathize with you in any way, or to experience what you're experiencing through your dramatic persona.
And what you're putting forward here is the idea that the best way for that to happen in film is through this kind of transparent performance that allows the subjectivity of the audience in to you as a performer, right?
Yes.
So the mode of identification is quite subtle. It's not a one-to-one, he's gay, I'm gay. It's much more to do with how am I you in this situation? How are you me? It's much more, it's much deeper than that, right?
It is much deeper, but it's necessary.
It's the only way as far as I can understand.
Especially if you want these two characters to be on the same level. And if you are playing an unlikable character, you have to give something why you want for these characters to be together.
Yeah.
At the end of the film, I only wanted the poor Aaron to find another guy, a nicer guy.
Me too, for what it's worth. One of these secondary plot strands is that he kind of hooks up with an old high school friend who you kind of want him to end up with in some ways because he's like a nice guy and he's a sports guy and he's just outed himself and all of this stuff.
Yeah, I thought it was a shame that he ended up with this mean, hectoring person. Yeah.
It's interesting in the way that the film unfolds and that the end of the film is played out, is performed, since we're going to talk about performance, is that you know that Billy Eichner's character has let down his guard because he performs a song. So that's the only way that they can signal in this fictional universe that this guy has opened up or let somebody else in.
Yes, and you don't believe it. That's the problem of the film. You don't believe that he is worthy of love, which is the whole point in the end.
If nothing else, this song is still a kind of kitschy, ironic, campy, bitchy song. It's not a particularly romantic song or anything.
No, not at all.
And full props, I think, to Luke Macfarlane, who can stand there and weep because he has to pretend that he's so moved by this.
That he's moved by this insincere gesture. Maybe the film would have worked if Billy Eichner had let somebody else play him. The fact that he played himself ruined the believability of this couple.
One of the lessons here for me is that being gay and performing gay are not the same thing. It seems like such a stupid point to have to make, but I think it's worth making, right? That just being gay doesn't mean that necessarily you can perform gay convincingly on screen.
Well, he performs gay convincingly on screen. He's just not a convincing human being, which is important in this case because you need a human being to convey true love at some point, because you need to be a human being to feel for somebody else.
So you can portray a gay stereotype if you are a gay stereotype in real life.
Oh, well, he's very good at being a gay stereotype, and he's very funny and he's very comedic. He was just not good in this part.
He's missing this key ingredient.
But that's not because he's gay or not gay. He's just miscast.
Because he's not an actor.
He's not an actor. That's the whole problem here. And you can see it in the other casts that he has cast to be politically correct in the boardroom of his LGBTQ plus museum. The whole board is consisting of these kind of stereotypes of trans women, lesbians, bi people, and they all play the ciphers of themselves. And you could really see that they're not actors themselves. As soon as they have to convey any kind of depth, they're completely out of their depth.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, with the exception, I think, of Jim Rash, who I have a real soft spot for because I find him hilarious.
So here we have got one actor in the cast.
Who plays... I think also one of the funniest roles is he's bisexual, which is the least popular of the sexualities on offer. So he has a chip on his shoulder because it's the most underrepresented. It's the least trendy, right?
Or maybe it is the most trendy. This is why he's got a problem. He's not niche enough. I don't know.
Desperately trying to prove that Abraham Lincoln was bisexual. And of course, anyway.
It is demonstrated very nicely in the film that if you're not an actor and you're cast for identity, you're never more than just a cipher. And it seems to be quite aware of this, but on the other hand, it doesn't want to believe it.
So once again, we see how intrinsic casting is to storytelling and what the meaning of the performer does to the meaning of the role and the performance of the role.
So I think the lesson learned here is cast in any way you like. If you want to cast gay people playing gay roles or the other way around, in the end, it doesn't matter. If you miscast, you miscast. If the performer does not live up to the necessity of the part, then you will have nothing. So maybe it's time to think about what is the necessity of the part rather than the necessity of the actor's identity.
Thanks for listening to Performance Anxiety. Watch this space for more analysis, love, and understanding of the art of performance. Till next time.